I got Instagram. Sooner or later, there we go. I have Instagram and I have Facebook, I do believe. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be. So this week we wanted to focus on training, and because my big thing is food, I really wanted to focus on nutrition as it relates to training. And I'm not a trainer. I know about less than that much about training. I took Forrest to his first puppy training class over the past 6 weeks, and it was eye-opening to me because I don't know anything about training. And what I learned the most with puppy training with Forrest was that you do not want to have isolated animals that are not socialized. I thought that Forrest was getting tons of socialization because we have other dogs, we have cats, we have all these animals on the farm. There's always people around. So I thought he was well social. He wasn't. He knew nothing. He was absolutely horrible. But we learned a ton. And really interestingly, Forrest does not eat very well, and he has to be hand fed. So I took my own freeze-dried, I think I took freeze-dried pork tenderloin with me for his training treats, because that's something that he will generally eat. And when I took him to class, I didn't feed him before we went so that he'd be hungry and want to work for it. And the training classes were held at our veterinary office. And so the trainer was using, as you could imagine, training treats made by one of the big candy companies, and Forrest wouldn't even touch them. So I was very proud of my young man that he wouldn't touch the crap. But nutrition wasn't something that was discussed at all in our puppy training class. And I think that it is really critical that we look at what we are putting into our dogs and our cats if we expect to get decent behavior out of them. If you think about it, so for instance, I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter. Her favorite thing in the world is chocolate. She's a Sarah. My mother's a Sarah. She's named after my mother. They both have a chocolate addiction. I don't like chocolate. Sarah's behavior after chocolate, especially if there's no protein on board first, it's really not pretty. It's really not pretty. But we see this in kids all the time. So when my kids were in school, there was a little boy in my son's class who had just a lot of behavior issues, a lot, just couldn't focus, was always a distraction, was always just a mess. And he suddenly did this huge turnaround. And so I was talking to his mom in the parking lot one day, and I said, wow, things seem to be going a lot better. What's going on? And she said, we found out that red dye in food was really messing with his mind, and that's what was causing him to not be able to focus. And as soon as she cleaned up his diet and got all that processed food out of there, got the sugars out, got the dyes out, it's totally different child, totally different personality and behavior. And so we see that same thing with our animals. And I think that it is just something that is not addressed often enough. And interestingly, I'm now starting to see trainers focusing more on, some trainers focusing more on nutrition, and also focusing on what we're giving them for their training treats, for their positive reinforcement. And it can make a huge difference in the outcome that you get. And I'm even seeing trainers who now want to use TCVM, energetics of food, in their training. So that's not only taking things to, a level of, hey, let's get off the processed stuff that's filled with the same dyes that we have pet food that is filled with red, green, yellow, blue dyes, which is totally for the pet parent. The animals could care less what color their food is. Pretty much they eat brown, dry balls of ick. But if we can get away from that, if we can get away from the sugars, get away from the dyes, get away from foods that may have euthanasia solution in them that can't do anything good for your focus, and move toward fresher feeding, raw feeding, gently cooked, whichever it is that you feel more comfortable with, but using human grade ingredients, it's going to make a huge difference for your animals and for their ability to focus. Kind of funny, when we first started carrying the freeze-dried heart treats, Gwen had some at her house and her cats broke into them. And what she discovered is that her cats um, will do just about anything for a freeze-dried heart. So Edward learned all kinds of tricks because he would do anything for that freeze-dried heart. It's a little more difficult with somebody like Forrest because he's really not food motivated. And I find those animals a little more challenging. Sometimes they're motivated more by, good boy, good girl, and a little, rub and pat and some enthusiasm. In Forrest's case, he doesn't like his head touched, so we can't pat him on his front end really at all. So I have to be really careful and kind of rub his sides when I want to give him a big reward. So it's going to be totally different for every dog. I mean, obviously, Forrest with his hydrocephalus is challenged in a lot of ways. He's challenged with his eating. He's challenged with his mental ability to process things, and he's challenged with where he likes to be touched. And there are a lot of because I deal so much with Cavaliers and English toys, a lot of these dogs do not like to be touched. Gabby, we can't touch the left side of her neck and shoulders, and we know that. So if she's getting praise reward, she's getting scritched and patted on the right side of her body where it doesn't bother her. So, um, what I really wanted to bring attention to is focusing on nutrition. So I know for people with large breed dogs, it can be a little more challenging cost wise, particularly, if you've got a Connie Corso or a big Rottie or a big Mastiff. Getting good nutrition in the bowl without breaking the bank can be a little tricky. If you're doing DIY and have good co-ops, good resources for getting things either in bulk or at discount, then yay. But if not, then I would at least recommend that you get as much fresh food in the bowl or on the platter as possible. So whether that's just getting some chicken backs or chicken necks or even just eggs. I know eggs are really expensive right now, but fresh greens that are broken down either by steaming, sauteing, grind them in your food processor. We have a list of superfoods on the website. Any of those toppers added into the bowl, we've got great studies showing that it increases longevity, but it's also going to increase their ability to focus because we're giving them vitamins from a fresh food source instead of synthetics that have basically been generated and are recognized as foreign to the body. And so the more we decrease inflammation in the body, the more we allow the animal to focus. We're going to talk tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow, to Dr. Connor Brady about nutrition and the microbiome and the gut-brain axis. We're going to get into some more sciencier stuff with it tomorrow. He's got just tons of good information. And he actually has a new course out on that. And so we'll be talking about his course and he'll be able to give us a little more information about what's in there. So, I'm not going to talk this week about training methods because I don't know anything about training methods. We're going to have a conversation with a good friend of mine who is spending this week at the Nationals doing agility with her Cavaliers. I was really interested to interview her and talk about how she trains her dogs, what she feeds her dogs, how her dogs got to be as good as they are. So we'll be looking at that. I'm going to spend one day talking about behavior issues from a TCVM standpoint, and how we can use food to help balance those imbalances from a TCVM standpoint. So hopefully you guys will find this information to be useful this week. I'm not going to be talking about how to train dogs. I don't know how. I learned a lot with Forrest, and we're learning together. So it is what it is. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow with Dr. Brady.